Chris, welcome to News9. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Neha.
Chris, you come here on a day when, global headlines are emerging from the Middle East. Israel has launched a ground incursion into Lebanon. How seriously is the United States viewing this situation?
Absolutely, very seriously. And the United States has been clear since Hamas's brutal attack in October of last year that Israel has the right to defend itself. We are an ally of Israel, and we will not allow foreign-backed terrorist groups to carry out attacks in Israel. We've been clear since day one, as I said, that Israel has the right to defend itself, and these foreign-backed terrorist groups are part of the problem that Israel is trying to eliminate right now.
You know, the worry all over the world, Chris, including here in India, is that this could spiral out of control and descend into a wider regional conflagration. I believe just today the Pentagon has issued a warning to Iran, saying there will be dire consequences if Iran goes ahead and launches an attack on Israel. The question is, what happens if you do have a situation like that? Wouldn't the U.S. inevitably get dragged into the regional conflict?
Well, I can't speculate on what might happen, but I can tell you where we stand today. The United States, along with a number of partners in the past few days, called for a ceasefire. It was the United States, the UK, Australia, Japan, partners in the Middle East such as Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, explicitly put out a joint statement calling for a ceasefire. That's what we're seeking right now. That said, the Defense Secretary, Secretary Lloyd, spoke with his Israeli counterpart and did say that Israel has a right to defend itself, that we don't want to see Hezbollah able to incur a cross-border attack in the same way that Hamas did, and that should Iran take any actions, they need to be aware of the consequences for any direct actions on Israel.
And is there real concern in Washington that Iran could in fact launch an attack?
Well, what we do know is that Iranian-backed proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, are carrying out attacks today.
And would it be difficult for you to tell us what the U.S.'s role might be in the eventuality of Iran getting directly involved?
Yeah, I can't speculate on what might happen, but what I do know that right now, Israel is defending itself against these Iranian-backed terrorist groups.
Okay, since we have limited time, Chris, I want to talk to you about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent visit to your country. Of course, there was a Quad summit, and he also held a bilateral on the sidelines with President Biden. What, according to you, were the important takeaways from these meetings?
The important takeaway from the Quad summit is something that was in the statement, something Prime Minister Modi has said, that the Quad is here to stay. We have elevated the Quad over the past 4 years of the Biden administration. He has met the Quad leaders. The Quad leaders have met 6 times, including twice virtually, and this is the 4th in-person one. The Quad is delivering for the people of the countries that are members of the Quad, but also for the region, for the entire Indo-Pacific. And you saw some of the big deliverables that came out of that. We're going to have our first Coast Guard joint operation. We're going to expand our Quad fellowship to countries from Southeast Asia. We're pursuing a Quad cancer moonshot with a long-term goal of ending cancer and starting with cervical cancer right now. And then on the bilateral side, Prime Minister Modi's visit was great. They have such a close relationship, the President and the Prime Minister, and some of the deliverables coming out of that, us working together on semiconductor fabrication plants, working to expand the ISET, the Initiative of Critical and Emerging Technology goals. What we're doing together as the United States and India are delivering for our people, and we're delivering good for the world.
You know, talking about the joint statement that came out at the end of the Quad summit, many felt that the language that was used in the context of the South China Sea was stronger than ever before. In fact, President Biden was also got on hot mic saying China is testing Quad. How big a challenge does the U.S. believe China's expansionism in the region is, and how important is India as a partner to the U.S. in that regard?
India is such an important partner of the United States across the Indo-Pacific, and during the Quad meeting, we realized and we put in the joint statement that our countries are more aligned, more strategically aligned than we have ever been. And so we're able to come up with some tough language because we are all on the same page. We have a common vision for the Indo-Pacific, and it's not about any one country. It's about our 4 countries and what we're delivering for other countries. And so you look at some of the things that we've talked about, you look at what the Quad is doing on maritime maritime domain awareness, which is a fancy word for seeing what's happening in the seas around your borders, we are able to deliver security for our people and for the region.
Okay, that's interesting. You don't want to refer to China directly, but then I guess that is really a common concern and challenge for everyone here. In fact, recently the US made a very important announcement opening up many more 125,000, if I'm not mistaken, visa slots for Indians.
Actually, 2.5 lakh.
I stand corrected. You know, and this happened soon after Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US. Is this something that came up in the bilateral between the two leaders?
I don't know if it came up in the bilateral between the two leaders, but I know what has come up is our people-to-people ties. One particular display that President Biden had in his home, which this was the first visit that he brought foreign leaders to his personal home in Delaware, is he had Indian cultural items on display. We signed a cultural property agreement earlier this year to help bring Indian cultural artifacts that were stolen from India back to India, nearly 300 artifacts this year. But they also talked about the people-to-people ties, how many students are coming to the United States, our tourism from India to the United States and vice versa. And with the 4 million strong Indian American diaspora, the fact that a quarter of international students in the United States are Indian, you see these people-to-people ties underpinning our relationship and really driving the future of US-India relations.
It is a very important relationship indeed, and I remember President Biden describing this relationship as the defining partnership of the 21st century during Prime Minister Modi's state visit last year. Last couple of questions, Chris. You know, this is a very important and strong partnership today, but there's a story that made headlines in India. On the eve of Prime Minister Modi's visit, the White House for the very first time met with pro-Khalistan leaders who we refer to as Khalistani separatists. Some of them have been designated as terrorists in India. Some were angry in India and said, what message is the US trying to send out to an important friend and partner?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that this is the first time that the White House has reached out to Indian Americans. They're regularly in touch with Indian Americans of all sorts of backgrounds and religions. And just as Prime Minister Modi, when he was in New York, met with Sikh Americans, the White House meets with Sikh Americans regularly. So I wouldn't quite characterize it that way. It's part of the regular outreach that the White House does to Indian Americans and the strong diaspora community and the strong Indian American community that's underpinning our relations. And I think you saw in Prime Minister Modi's visit the way that the interactions with the diaspora are great for both of our countries. The huge event that he had in Long Island with diaspora, also the fact that he met with business leaders up in New York, many of which were of Indian origin. The White House is going to continue to reach out to Indian Americans of all different religions, just as Prime Minister Modi did while he was in the United States.
Final question, Chris, I promise. You know, Prime Minister Modi recently visited both Moscow and Kiev. Washington was not very pleased when he was with Putin at the Kremlin, going by the remarks of Ambassador Eric Garcetti. But does the US today see India as a potential peacemaker in the Russia-Ukraine conflict?
We would welcome any efforts by any country to help bring about peace and a durable solution to Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. And if India is able to play that role, we would absolutely welcome it. And so Prime Minister Modi has been clear that this is not an era of war. He has backed the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and he wants a peaceful solution. We know that, and we know that when he's going around the world, he's seeking peace. We absolutely support efforts towards peace, and if India is able to play a role, that would be a great thing.
Christopher Elms, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Neha.